This is a video about the most important but most ignored concept in AI automation. It's the reason some industries are exploding while others are virtually untouched. Why the job market is so uneven in a spread of supply and demand. Every year people are talking more and more about AI replacing humans. Maybe out of fear, maybe out of hope. Yet what none of it talks about is that in a world of humans so diverse, so difficult to predict, the massive variability of systems, human-made and otherwise, is the ultimate constraint on what choices automators have. Why is that company freezing hiring? Why is that one taking all the staff they can? And why are humanoid robots always having problems? In a world of AI, software, and unprecedented ability to automate tasks that used to be uniquely human, something unexpected is happening. The ability to operate in unpredictable, three-dimensional spaces is rapidly becoming the most valuable thing that separates humans from machines. Nurses, you're safe. Self-driving vehicles are supposed to be the future of transportation, and the numbers sound impressive. Waymo, one of the most advanced autonomous vehicle systems in the world, reports that riding in one of their cars means 90% lower chance of serious injury compared to riding with a human driver, and that's in their operating areas. But here's what Waymo and every other leading autonomous vehicle system has in common. When the weather is clear, the roads are well mapped, the speed is low, and every other driver behaves predictably, things generally go well. But the same car in a thunderstorm, a construction zone, a blacked out intersection, or a situation where another driver does something unexpected, the system struggles. Cameras get blinded by glare and rain. Sensors misfire. A 2025 study by a former senior safety advisor at NHTSA put it plainly: autonomous vehicles are, at their core, statistical probability machines. They are always calculating the most likely outcome based on the patterns they were trained on. They are, by design, built for the average. The problem is that the world is not average. Human beings were not built for the average. We were built for the exception. The human brain is designed specifically for navigating three-dimensional environments in real time, reading threats, adapting to chaos, and making split-second ethical judgments with incomplete information. The cerebellum alone, the part of the brain managing movement and spatial coordination, contains more neurons than the rest of the brain combined. We are not wired for numbers. We are wired for the world as it actually is, messy, volatile, and alive. That distinction between a system built for predictable patterns and a mind built for unpredictable reality is the entire argument I'm about to make. Because what's true on the road is even more true in a hospital room. But before we get there, let's not be naive about what AI can actually do. Because if I stand here and tell you that AI is overblown and that you have nothing to worry about, I'd be lying. So let's be honest. AI can read an X-ray faster than most radiologists. Not eventually, today. A landmark study in Nature found that an AI model matched or exceeded board-certified dermatologists in identifying skin cancer from images. Google's DeepMind built a system that predicts acute kidney failure 48 hours before clinical symptoms appear. 48 hours. And that is not a parlor trick. That is a genuinely life-saving capability. These are real things that are happening right now, and anyone who tells you this technology won't reshape healthcare is either not paying attention or is lying to protect your feelings. So yes, the threat is real. But here's where it gets interesting. McKinsey, one of the most respected research institutions in the world when it comes to the future of work, looked at every major job category and asked a simple question: which jobs are the hardest to automate? And their answer came down to three things: jobs that take place in unpredictable physical environments, jobs that require genuine emotional intelligence, and jobs that require deep human connection. Nursing hits all three, every single shift, and that's not an accident. That is the nature of the work. Now here's the number that almost nobody talks about when they're writing those scary automation headlines. The World Health Organization projects a global shortage of 5.9 million nurses by the year 2030. Not a surplus, not a wave of layoffs, a shortage. The world does not have enough nurses. It is not trying to figure out how to replace the ones it has. It's desperately trying to find more of them. The United States Bureau of Labor Statistics projects nursing to grow 6% through 2033. That is faster than the average for all occupations in the country. In an area where we are told that automation is eating every industry, nursing is projected to outgrow the economy. That is not a field being automated out of existence. That is a field being overwhelmed by demand it can't keep up with. So here's something they don't teach you in nursing school, and I think they should. Imagine a dim light bulb, the old kind, maybe 15, 20 watts. And that's the amount of electrical power your brain is running on right now while you listen to this, 20 watts. And on that 20 watts, your brain is simultaneously processing everything you're hearing, managing your posture, regulating your breathing, monitoring your environment for threats, managing your emotional state, retrieving memories, and building new ones, all at the same time. On 20 watts. Now let me tell you about GPT-4, the AI system behind ChatGPT, the thing that everyone compares to human intelligence. Training that system, just training it before anyone used it once, consumed an estimated 50 gigawatt hours of electricity. Researchers have calculated that that's enough to power a small city for a whole year, and that's before a single person asks it a single question. So on one side of the scale, you have 20 watts producing a human being who can walk into a room, read 6 people at once, make complex ethical decisions, perform physical procedures, provide emotional intelligence, and adapt in real time to conditions that change every 30 seconds. On the other side, you have the energy output of a small city producing a system that is genuinely impressive at predicting the next word in a sentence. No machine ever built converts energy into intelligent, adaptive, compassionate action the way a human being does. But every engineering metric, efficiency, versatility, adaptability, you are the most sophisticated system on this planet. Robots are not replacing you. They are not even in the same category as you. Now, let's talk about something the AI industry genuinely does not want to talk about. Sick people are not always pleasant. That's not a criticism, it's biology. Pain makes people irrational. Fear makes people cruel. Illness strips away every social filter we spend our lives building, and what's left underneath isn't always pretty. And a lot of the time, that rawness gets aimed directly at the person standing in the room, which is the nurse. Imagine this scene. Room 4. A grown man, maybe 250 pounds, post-surgery, in pain, scared out of his mind, and absolutely convinced that nobody is doing anything right. He's been ringing the call button for 20 minutes about something that cannot be fixed any faster than it's being fixed. His voice is getting louder. His family in the corner is getting tense. And the door opens. She walks in like she owns the place, because after 15 years on this floor, she kind of does. She doesn't rush. She doesn't flinch. She looks at him the way only someone who has seen 1,000 versions of this exact moment can look at a person, with total clarity, confidence, and absolutely no intention of letting this go sideways. She tilts her head, puts one hand on her hip, and says, real calm, real steady, I hear you. And I need you to take a breath right now, because we are going to handle this. But I need you to be present with me, not at war with me. Can you do that? And he stops. Not because she was louder than him, not because she threatened him, not because hospital policy required him to comply, but because on some deep, primal, biological level, he recognized that the person in that room has earned the right to say that to him. She has been in rooms where things went wrong. She carries that in her body, her voice, the way she holds the space. He feels it before he can think it. That is not customer service training. That is not a scripted de-escalation protocol. That is a human being welding the full weight of life lived in service of another human being who desperately needs to be redirected back toward healing. A robot cannot do that. Not won't, cannot. Structurally, fundamentally, cannot. A robot will agree. It will comply. It will generate a calm message and move on. And the patient will feel, without being able to name why, that he just spoke into a void, that there is no one actually there, and that feeling for a sick and frightened person is one of the most dangerous things you can produce in a clinical setting. A friend of mine said it best. He said if a robot showed up to be his nurse, he'd probably break it. And I think that instinct is more clinically significant than it sounds. Patients know the difference between presence and performance. Even the most difficult ones, maybe especially the most difficult ones, are counting on you to be real. Respect is not a setting you program, it's earned. And robots cannot earn it. Here's where I want to go even deeper, because everything so far has been about what nurses do. I want to talk about what nurses are biologically, and what the science says happens to human beings when you take that away. Picture that nurse walking back into the room after a long stretch away. The patient looks up, and something in their whole body shifts. Shoulders drop, breathing slows. They exhale. That exhale is not small. That exhale is biology. In 1969, a psychologist named Paul Ekman began documenting what he called microexpressions, involuntary movements of the face lasting less than a fifth of the second, happening before the conscious mind can suppress them. Fear, shame, pain, despair. The face broadcasts them whether we want it to or not. The human brain reads these automatically. You don't decide to do it. It just happens. When a nurse walks into the room and says something feels off, that's not a hunch. That is a biological detection system reading data that no camera or sensor array can respond to the way a human being can. But we're not just communicating with our faces. We're communicating with our chemistry. Research into human chemosignaling has found that stress hormones are detectable in sweat and breath, and that exposure to fear-related chemicals activates threat detection systems in areas of the brain nearby. A mother's scent alone can produce measurable drops in cortisol in a distressed infant. Skin-to-skin contact between a nurse and a premature baby, what's called kangaroo care, has been shown to reduce neonatal mortality, stabilize heart rate, and improve long-term neurological development. So tell me which of those things a robot could do better. And then there's what scientists call physiological synchrony. Research shows that when two people are in close proximity, their heart rates, breathing patterns, and cortisol levels begin to align. Evidence also points to mirror neuron-like systems in the human brain, circuits that appear to activate both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing it, forming what may be the biological foundation of empathy itself. What this means practically is that a calm, regulated nurse may be literally lending her nervous system to her patient, his body following hers toward regulation. That is not a metaphor. That is a measurable physiological process. A robot has no nervous system to lend, no chemistry to transmit, no face for the patient's brain to synchronize with. In the presence of a machine, the patient is, at every biological level that matters, alone. And now I need to tell you what the research says about what that actually does to a person. Picture a different room, not a hospital room, a cell, 8 by 10 feet, a metal door, fluorescent lights that never change. No visitors, no human contact. In 1983, a Harvard psychiatrist named Stuart Gracian studied what happened to prisoners held in exactly that environment. What he found was so consistent and so severe that it became a recognized clinical syndrome. Ordinary sounds became unbearable. Paranoia set in. Cognitive function collapsed. Full psychotic breaks occurred. In some prisoners, these symptoms appeared within days, not weeks, days. Now, picture your patient in pain, frightened, in an environment that is alien to them, full of sounds they don't understand. Their sleep is fractured. Their sense of time has dissolved. Their body is failing them in ways that they may not fully understand. ICU delirium is already one of the most under-addressed crises in modern medicine, affecting up to 80% of mechanically ventilated patients in some studies, producing hallucinations, paranoia, and cognitive decline that can persist long after discharge. And that is with the human nurses present. Now imagine you remove them. The room is clean, efficient, flawless by every task metric, and the patient has not had any meaningful human contact in 4 days. What you have built for a sick, frightened, isolated human being may be the clinical equivalent of that cell, and we already know what that does to a person. The data is not ambiguous. That exhale when the nurse walks in, the shoulders dropping, the breathing slowing, the visible relief, that is a clinically significant event. And every time you walk through that door, you're producing that moment. No machine ever will. And one more thing, and I think it may be the most important. When a patient cannot speak for themselves, unconscious, sedated, too frightened to find the words, or simply too sick to know what they don't know, someone has to stand in the gap. Someone has to be the human voice in a system that can feel deeply inhuman. The American Nurses Association's Code of Ethics doesn't treat advocacy as a nice extra. It places it at the absolute core of the practice. Not task completion, advocacy. One human being standing up for another. And AI will follow the protocol, and often the protocol is right. But sometimes something is wrong that the protocol doesn't account for. Sometimes a patient said something quietly that changes everything. Sometimes the system is moving in a direction that no one has stopped to question. And the only person in a position to ask the question is the one standing at the bedside. That person is you. Ethics are not an algorithm. Compassion is not a feature that gets added to the next software update. It's the product of a human life lived with attention and care, brought into a room in service of someone who needs it. The world is automating. It is real, it is accelerating, and it will eliminate millions of jobs. That is not fear-mongering. That is what the data says, and people will speculate. The argument you'll hear is that automation will free nurses up. Let the machines handle the routine tasks so that the humans can focus on the complex ones. It sounds reasonable, but here's what it misses. Every task you automate takes a nurse out of the room, and every moment a nurse spends out of the room is a moment she isn't there when things start to collapse. The value of a nurse is not only in the tasks she or he performs, it is in the continuous embodied presence in an environment that can change from stable to critical in the time it takes to draw a breath. Automation doesn't free her up, it pulls her away from the exact place where her presence matters most. Every automated interaction that replaces a human one strips away something that the patient could have received. A microexpression read, a chemical signal exchanged, a nervous system synchronized, the quiet biological message delivered without a single word that says you are not alone in this. Speculators can say what they want about AI taking away all jobs, but until the nature of AI changes from analysis of patterns to a living thing with experiences and biological adaptability, nurses' dominance at the bedside fulfilling a unique human role is unlikely to change.